Chico and Ed butt heads when a government man says Chico can't live in the van. Battle of the Network shows. Join Rick Brooks and Mike Kogel as they explore the TV of the 70s and 80s through hand-picked episodes of their favorite and not-so-favorite series.
I'm Mike.
And I'm Rick. Hello, everyone.
And this week, we're going to be talking about Chico and the Man.
Yes, we are.
Starring Freddie Prinze and Jack Albertson. I should have said him first because Jack Albertson in Chico and the Man.
That's right, yes. That's how it's built, isn't it? Yeah.
Built around him. So, sitcom from the early 70s, mid-70s, I should say. Maybe ended a little prematurely.
Certainly, yeah.
I mean, it lasted a season after Freddie Prinze died, but I'm honestly surprised it made it that long.
Really?
Was it a full season?
Well, yes.
I mean, made it after.
Yeah, I see.
Because I know it was like a huge hit out of the gate, right?
Right. Its first season was huge. Second season, not so much, but still pretty big hit. And then third season, it already was tailing off a little bit. Yeah, the last season, I guess they canceled it, and then they burned episodes.
Okay.
So I think they wound up with a pretty full slate for that season. Yeah. Like 20-some episodes, but it wasn't like it was on the brink or anything. They knew that it wasn't working, so.
Right.
And I think one of the reasons that I think I was the one that suggested this, and one of the reasons was I was just happy to see it being shown. It's on Tubi, free for streaming, and this is a series that really hasn't been that commonplace in syndication, partly because it ended early.
Right.
And I think also because what happened with Freddie Prinze, I think there was a perception that kind of put a pall over the whole series. So you get maybe like almost 3 full seasons with Freddie Prinze, and then that other season, and even then you didn't get to like the 100 episodes. So as a result, it's been kind of a relatively rare show for something that was as popular as it was for the first couple of seasons. So I was really excited to see it just kind of out of nowhere show up on Tubi.
Yeah.
All episodes.
And then you watch it.
Yes. No, wait a minute now. I very much enjoy this show.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Oh, this is
I'm just being the whole vibe of that show is a little good-natured ribbing, right?
That's right, yes. Yeah. Well, we'll see. Maybe we'll have one of those rare differences of opinion this episode.
You've seen more of it than I have, so.
I have. Yeah, I kind of started watching it as soon as it got aired. I mean, not hardcore, but I watched a couple of episodes, and I was curious because also it's on there with Spanish audio. Oh. So they went through the trouble of recording new Spanish audio tracks to it. And when I saw that, I was like, okay, this is going to be here a while.
Yeah.
Because they spent a lot of money on this series. I mean, it's not like it's restored to 4K or anything like that.
No.
But they did spend money to create the Spanish audio tracks. So I'm like, okay, this isn't one I'm going to watch a little bit and then it's going to disappear in 6 months. This is going to be around for the long haul, hopefully.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and it's interesting, isn't it, that they did it on Tubi and licensed it to Tubi instead of just putting it on Max, which kind of shows the attitude Warner Brothers has towards its library shows.
It's a Warner, I didn't know that.
Yeah. It's a Warner Brothers show, and for a while they put it on. They did have it on. You remember the AOL Into TV? I think we've talked about that here before. They showed Welcome Back, Kotter for a while on there, and I think Head of the Class was on there. And for a while they had some, maybe a handful of episodes, rotating episodes of Chico and the Man were on there too. It was like AOL's free streaming thing with a Warner Brother branding. And I think it was on Nick and Night or TV Land for a while too. But other than that, I don't think you see it too often. Probably in the last 20 years would be my guess.
I was aware of it as a kid, just as in the name of a show at the very least.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I must have seen it once or twice, but it would have been, when did it end? 78?
Yeah, was it 74 to 78, something like that?
I think so. So it would have been pretty young. Well, the other thing I heard it is just Jack Albertson mania, finally.
Yeah.
It finally died.
He had a great run, though, didn't he?
He did. Great 50 years or so where people were just nuts about it.
Yeah, for a while, like in the mid-70s, it was Jack Nicholson or Jack Albertson.
Yes, that's right.
A lot of the press, the fan press, would sort of playfully pit them against each other, and ask teenage girls who they like better. And, it was close.
Yeah, and Jack Albertson was famous for going to all the Clippers games.
That's right. Clippers. And with a ratty sweater with a hole in it too, not Armani or anything for Jack Albertson.
Yeah, and his lucky hat.
Yeah.
I like Jack Albertson.
Yeah, now Jack Albertson, of course, from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
Right.
I saw him lots of times as a kid. I didn't really see Chico and the Man. I'm kind of like in your situation. I remember being aware of the show, not watching it very often though.
And frankly, being more aware of Freddie Prinze Jr.
Yeah.
Again, yeah, so because of its sad ending. Because he was a star at 19, right?
Yeah.
19, 20, and dead by 24, 25 or something.
Yeah, he was doing successful stand-up even younger than that, and had this top 5 show
right
at the age of like 19. It's amazing. And yeah, I was watching a documentary I told you about him, and just showing a few clips of like all the things he did in that short time. Like, but it was like weird thing, like he was hosting the Tonight Show, guest hosting the Tonight Show, which is amazing. Like in those days, like when it's one thing that keeps coming up is how many people actually guest hosted the Tonight Show, back then.
Like when I was watching it later in the the later years, it was pretty much either Leno or Shandling.
Yeah, or and maybe early before that, maybe Joan Rivers.
Yeah,
you'd have like a maybe a handful of people that rotated. Whereas in the 70s, it seemed like anybody could do it for like a week.
Yeah,
and they would ask. It's just amazing to think that they had somebody so young and who hadn't done anything like that before.
Yeah,
and he seemed to do. I've seen a few clips. He seems to have done a incredible job.
That doesn't surprise me. Just what I've seen here, it's got charisma out the yin. I don't know. What's a Spanish word for the yin yang?
Well, let's not go there.
He's got a lot of charisma.
Yes. But he also did like one of those Saturday morning preview specials, I think, for NBC. So he was doing all kinds of stuff.
Right.
And yeah, it's sad. And yes, he committed suicide during the third season, and it's cliche, but it's kind of a cautionary tale.
Mm-hmm.
But it seems like a case of like some kind of like mental issues that he was never really addressed, and the old self-medication of drugs, and alcohol, a tough combination.
Yeah.
So I can understand especially probably for 3 or 4 years after you had such a big run, I can understand people being uneasy about watching the show. Now for me, it's 40 years ago, so it's sad. I mean, the one thing I do think is like, man, he could have been just all the things he could have done, and yes, that is in the back there, but it doesn't really hurt my enjoyment watching the show or anything like that.
Most everybody on there is gone now, so
that's true. But
their
demises were somewhat more benign.
Yeah.
Yes.
General.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like I guess maybe nowadays it's not that big a deal, and maybe there's a lot of like a newer generation is finding like, oh hey, there's this like Latino themed sitcom rerun that we can watch, and maybe people don't think of it that way. But I guess the perception was probably for a long time that, like I said, it put a pall over the show and it made it more difficult for people to enjoy it. But yeah, maybe that's not the case now. Good, because I think there's a lot in here that deserves to be seen. I italicized the I. Maybe I shouldn't have, but
Yeah, feeling I might be the man in this scenario. But it's a story of Ed Brown. He owns a garage in East LA. He's a widower. He's maybe an alcoholic. He's a grump. And in walks Chico. Young man who weasels his way into Ed's life and becomes his mechanic and lives in a van in the garage.
Yeah.
Which is, of course, the main set we see. The garage. The van's always there, too. Part of the set, but they're not filming in a van.
Yeah, no.
A fascinating garage to me. I don't know if this was a realistic thing, but it has a gas pump inside.
Yeah.
We're going to do a whole episode about violations and things. That would definitely not pass muster.
Yeah, no, one thing you don't see on the show is characters slipping on the floor all the time.
No.
Which you would think you would if there was a gas pump, working gas pump.
Yeah, and oil slicks.
Yeah.
And they don't have a lift or anything.
No, that's right.
But it is a pretty cool set.
It's pretty spacious.
Yes. And Ed lives in a tiny apartment above it. Guess he's renting all this space. Guess that comes up in the third season.
Yeah.
And the neighborhood has changed. It's a more Chicano or Latino neighborhood now.
Yes.
It seems like in the first few episodes, there's an air of Archie Bunker about him. But
yes. Yeah, it's East Los Angeles, I guess.
Yeah.
East LA. And yeah, this was a time when I guess the whole Chicano culture was having a moment.
Yeah.
And it was becoming kind of more of a thing in culture. And this was kind of a natural extension of that, this show.
Created by this guy, Jim Carmack.
Comac, I think.
Comac, sorry.
Carmack the Magnificent.
Carmack the Magnificent, yes. Who I want to learn more about him because he seems to have a bit of a reputation.
Well,
he was also heavily involved in Welcome Back, Kotter.
Yeah.
Did not get along with Gabe Kaplan.
No. Boy, if you can't get along with Gabe Kaplan, join the club. Am I right?
Yes,
No, I
and
don't.
I did go searching, of course, Mark Evaner's blog for his thoughts on him, and he did mention that during his time on Welcome Back, Kotter, that he did witness a lot of arguments, and that most of the time Gabe Kaplan was right.
Well,
And he doesn't say that about anybody,
Yeah.
most anybody. So.
yeah.
He had another story about him that wasn't that Comac that wasn't flattering. But
It's interesting because the other show he did was like, I know, it was Courtship of Eddie's Father.
Uh-huh.
It was very successful, and that doesn't seem really anything like the other two shows.
yeah,
During that Freddie Prinze documentary, I think it's Gone Before His Time. It's also on Tubi, but there's like one stock photo they keep showing of him like kind of embracing Jack Albertson and Freddie Prinze, and it's funny because he kind of looks like more like he's got longer hair, a big mustache, looks like more of a quote unquote character.
Yeah.
But some of the other pictures I saw of him were much more conventional. But seeing these pictures, like, yeah, there seems like there should be a story with this guy.
Yes.
I don't know what that story is, but
No.
it seems like there should be a story.
Well, and I saw some things about Cheech and Chong kind of saying that, I don't know if he ripped them off exactly, but he spent some time hanging out with them and was maybe developing this idea for them, something. I guess there's some hard feelings.
Yeah.
So,
It seemed like they had Jack Albertson locked in, and the question was who would play Chico. And I guess I think James Comac saw Freddie Prinze and thought he'd be great, and he had kind of had to sell him on the network,
right.
because he was inexperienced. They really did, even though he had a reputation in comedy, they were worried that he wouldn't be able to hold his own in a network sitcom.
Right.
And the other interesting thing about this is it followed Sanford and Son, which was huge at the time. Sanford and Son was basically like number one or number two show at the time, and the structure is very similar to Sanford and Son. Sort of like you have like a blue collar setting, almost stage bound show for the most part, and sort of like a generational gap conflict. And it's interesting that they paired it. I think they wanted a show to pair with Sanford and Son, not dissimilar.
Right. Chico is gets to be funny a lot more than Lamont.
Yeah, yeah.
That is Edge. They sort of switch back and forth between who's the funny person and who's the straight man. And in some episodes, they become a little Marx Brothery team against other people.
Chico and the Man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The episodes I've seen, that's the stuff I enjoy the most.
Right.
When they're both getting to be funny and you see that there's a bond between them. They're not just, it's not just grumpy.
No.
Grumpy nice guy.
I think that worked right away. I think there's an incredible chemistry between those two right away, and I think that they kind of babyface Ed Brown, the man, very early in the show.
Okay.
Like my theory, I could be wrong on this. My theory is that early on, I think they consciously maybe just moved away from it. They said, we don't need to have Ed be as bigoted or harsh as he has to. And it becomes more, I think even as early as the first season, it becomes less about Ed and Chico like warring with each other and more about like Ed being a little crusty, but because it was so obvious that they had the chemistry together, I think it was more like, okay, it's more Ed against the world. And Chico is the one kind of trying to like, it's more of the generational thing, and Chico trying to like do what's best for Ed, and despite Ed's like sort of conservative instincts and like not wanting to change with the times, which is a lot different than the two of them, sort of like the ethnic conflict, which it seemed like that was like what the show was going to be built around, but I think they abandoned that pretty quickly.
I did feel like watching the first two episodes that it was almost like, because Ed is in those episodes is addressing God a lot, comically, but just get this guy out of my hair. What am I? Another day like this, and like almost Chico, not that he's an angel, but something brought them together. Like Chico's there to help Ed become be reacquainted with probably the man he was when he was before his wife died.
Right, because that's the one thing is it's not just but the isolation. Yeah, because he doesn't want to interact with the world, and Chico kind of brings him out and helps him engage more with the immediate community and the community at large, and just humanity in general. So yeah, there's a lot of that going on, and I do think it's interesting because after Freddie Prinze's death, they decided to go on with the show. In the fourth season, they bring on Raul, precocious young boy, much younger. I think he's 13 maybe, and it's almost like they do like a little reset. And Ed makes a few comments towards him, and kind of more comments about Chicanos in general or whatever. Yeah, and it seems a little forced. It's like they're consciously trying to do a reset and everything, and it's not like they really go real hard in with that. But I do think they were kind of like, okay, let's kind of get some more conflict in there, but let's sort of bring the ethnic differences back more to the forefront for like conflict purposes, because BOG Tiana's favorite Charo, appears in the third season. I think it's the third season. Is almost like a semi-regular for a while, and it's more like differences, and it's Charo.
Yeah.
Like there was one
Isn't
episode.
she in that last season?
Is
Isn't
it the
she
fourth season?
Raul's
Yes, that's right. You're right.
aunt or some
You're right.
nonsense.
Yes, that's how she comes in. So it's the last season. But I saw like one episode where they're sort of like doing a review, like a musical review. And it's sort of like everybody's dancing and like Jack Albertson's dancing and like Charo's doing her shtick and everything like that. So there's the differences there, but it's more like for comedy,
Right.
So ultimately, I think you could look at it and it's not even like All in the Family as far as like social commentary and things that we talked about in our season premiere. Chico and the Man is much different as far as it's much more of like conventionally sitcom humor, I'd say.
Yeah. I think the social commentary is almost all in the opening credits.
Yeah.
Which I love. They're great.
Right.
I mean, a cool song by
Jose Feliciano.
Jose Feliciano. That's what was it going to say.
Yes.
All I could think of was Feliz Navidad. I know, like that's not his name. Jose Feliciano. It's great because most TV theme songs of sitcoms. Well, a lot of them are. They're about the show, but they don't necessarily. They could be not about the show. Like Different Strokes. The theme song could just be about something else, or the facts of life, or
sure.
Any of these ones that Alan Thicke was involved.
Yeah.
But and then there's the sort of Brady Bunch, Gilligan's Island type where they're telling you the story of the show.
Right.
But this is interesting because he's addressing Chico. He's like giving him encouragement.
That's right.
Chico, don't worry about the man. He's a grump, but he's really good inside. Whatever he's saying, something like that.
Right.
That's pretty close, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's very soulful.
Something about the sunrise at the end, and then there's a different song in the end credits.
Yeah. Yeah.
Unfortunately, I didn't hear a lot because Tubi was very quick on the next episode trigger.
There's a little more edge. It's more like the end credits are more of a little bit. I get more of a sense of like snapshot of the barrio.
Yeah.
Barrio life at the end.
Right.
Whereas the beginning, like you said, you see the pictures that tell a story.
Yes.
But yes, it's very intimate and personal what Jose Feliciano is advising.
But
Chico.
then the pictures are great because it's all this verite footage of life in East LA.
Yeah.
And looks pretty fun.
Yeah.
There's weddings and barbecues and people just living their lives, and it's stuff I certainly see around here when I'm in areas where there are more Latinos or something. There's a lot of outdoor community and
right.
things going on, people playing soccer and in the park, doing barbecues and stuff.
It gives you a sense of culture, really, and an atmosphere that you don't really get in the show itself.
No.
Because most of it's taking place in that garage.
Yeah. Right outside the door.
Yeah. Yeah, it is a great song though.
Yeah.
I don't know what the story is as far as the creation of it. Like,
right.
I'm sure that Jose Feliciano didn't happen to have a song called Chico the Man. And that's why they named the characters Chico.
It could be. Yeah. Well, that would be interesting. Comac heard that song. Yeah. Oh, there's my title.
But it's kind of funny because Chico really doesn't need the advice so much.
No.
Despite the conflicts in this episode we're going to talk about, there's some frustrations. But really, Chico is the one that seems to have it all together. He's very self-assured.
Yes, he is.
Unlike, whatever demons were plaguing Freddie Prinze, Chico Rodriguez is, he's a confident young man and
he's upbeat.
Yeah, but at the same time, yes, he takes what life, is giving him and yes, very upbeat, positive.
Yeah.
Good mechanic.
Apparently, yeah. Not a lot of mechanicking going on either.
No. It seems like the main thing that I've seen is people bringing their car in for maybe an oil change or something that can be solved in like 20 minutes.
Right.
Whereas in real life, I don't have, if my cars have had problems, it almost invariably involves like a part that they don't have.
Yep.
Leaving the car at the garage, for 3 days while they wait for some part to come in.
Well, if they don't have the part, Chico will just take the identical part off a different part of the car.
There you go.
He does in the first episode.
Yes, his business ethics were a little lacking early on, I think.
He did it for free.
Yeah. Well, just making the customer feel good.
Exactly. Yeah. But and again, in the early episodes, it seemed like that was part of the structure. At some point, someone's going to pull in their car, and there's going to be some comedy around that.
Yeah, that was like the way to get the story going.
Yeah.
Like with the outside world. And then I guess they still did some of that. But a lot of it was like, bringing in other, some of the regular characters and just like Ed needs to do this or just Ed trying something or Chico trying to get Ed to do something. And of course, regular in the show, the whole run, the great Scatman Crothers.
Yes.
As Louis.
Yeah. Who was a garbage man?
Yeah. A sanitation engineer, if you will.
One of the episodes I watched, this is the So Chico, season 2, Chico's on a jury, and the whole kind of, or like half of the opening act is the three of them in the garage, and Louis has made some sort of dinner in a pot on the hot plate. It looks like baked beans or something along those lines. And Ed keeps smelling it, and Jack Albertson, let's admit, is a bit of a ham, and keeps doing takes in response to the smell. Even Chico takes a look at it, but they're serving it on burritos, like a burrito on a plate, a flour or tortilla. Burrito, and then just spreading the beans on the tortilla and using the tortilla as the plate.
Okay.
I assume maybe then you eat the tortilla afterwards.
So they're eating the beans off the tortilla, but
Yes.
not eating the tortilla
Right.
at the same time.
So I guess it's getting the juice.
Okay.
Because the beans are not, they're more like baked beans, so it's not like refried beans or black beans where it's kind of solid. And the entire time this is going on, Scatman he's eating it. And I loved it.
Yeah.
It's great. He just keeps putting beans on it. More beans.
Yes, we of course talked about him on our Love Boat episode.
Yeah.
But I think he fits right in with the other two.
Yeah.
The three of them are great. And any scene with the three of them is usually good stuff, I think.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. It's again a dynamic, and they bring like this veteran black actor in,
Yes.
with the old white guy and this young Latino, and
he's sort of the bridge between them.
Yeah.
He's a little jaded, but he's also much more positive than Ed.
Right, and he's known Ed a long time, but he hits it off with Chico right away, and it looks like his personality, the character's personality, is much more similar to Chico's than it is to Ed's.
Yeah,
because
definitely.
he's generally a very positive presence. If, like you said, a little bit jaded and realistic about some things, but I guess more of a smile when he jokes about life than Ed.
Yeah.
Ed's crankier humor.
Right.
But yeah, that's one of the reasons I like this particular episode, is because it has him, and there's a few scenes that just have like the three of them, so you see a little bit of that in this episode.
Yeah.
But I also think this episode is atypical in some ways, and maybe that's why I do like this episode so much, because it does go out of the garage several times.
Yeah.
Including, we'll get there, but to a setting that I don't think is seen before or after in the show.
That's interesting because it's a pretty elaborate, if small, set.
Yeah, and it's like,
was it was that little bit a spin-off idea that didn't go anywhere?
I don't know, but so they go to a diner.
Yeah.
Now in the third season, they introduced Della Reese's character as kind of like the landlord. She owns the building, but she has multiple businesses, but she also runs like a food cart or food delivery, food truck, food service kind of thing. So that gives them a chance to have meals and stuff. Now in this episode, it seems like that'd be a natural place for somebody to go to the diner. I mean, they could just hang out and talk in the garage.
Right.
But I like the fact that they get out of there and do this, in kind of a different setting. It seems like a good idea, but I don't think they really went back to that for whatever reason. And the special guest star, who was not as special at the time,
No.
this was the only episode that she was in, of Chico and the Man. So it's not like the character recurred, but wouldn't you, watching that scene, wouldn't you think that, like, oh, she must have been on an episode before?
Right, and then, well, we'll get to it.
Because everybody acts
they
like
they were probably, oh, we got gold here. Let's bring her back.
Yeah, they act like it's a regular hangout.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no indication that, like, if this is the first episode you saw, you would probably assume that, like, they come here regularly and do this, but not the case.
Yeah, weird.
Well, only James Comack knew.
That's right.
For sure. And it's too late to ask him, I guess.
Yeah.
Maybe Mark Evanier knows, though.
Yeah,
somehow.
I don't know if he knows anything about Chico. I'm sure he knows something.
Yeah.
He knows something about everything.
Yes.
I almost guarantee you he either snuck into a Tonight Show where Freddie Prinze was hosting or doing stand-up.
Yes.
Or he saw him at the Comedy Store.
Yeah, I think that's a safe bet.
Or the Improv. I'm not sure which one he was.
Yeah, well, I think Freddie Prinze was a regular in the Improv, because I think that's where I first heard the story that he shot an arrow into John Travolta's door.
Oh.
Jimmy Walker told that story.
Yeah,
I think it was in the Improv series.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that came up in the other documentary I was watching. They told it a little bit differently.
Right.
But I mean, the basics of it are pretty consistent.
Yeah.
It's one of those things like, you don't believe the story. I thought Jimmy Walker was kind of just like telling a story, but then they show the police report. The police at least wrote down that, apparently there was an arrow shot into the door of John Travolta. Which doesn't really make sense.
Comack probably had to intercede.
Yeah.
Johnny.
Yeah, they had to have a sit down.
Yeah. On the TCM podcast that Ben Mankiewicz does, the one on Pam Grier, she had some stories about him.
That's right. Yeah, I'd forgotten.
It was a sad story, whatever. think Richard Pryor was involved too.
Yeah. Well, he was.
Or maybe she had separate stories about that.
Yeah,
But
there was some like tension between because both Richard Pryor and Freddie Prinze
it dated her.
and
Yeah.
and I guess Richard Pryor was kind of Freddie Prinze looked up to him and yeah, that comedy scene in the 70s.
Yeah.
What a world.
So this episode is called Chico and the Man.
Yes, it is, and it premiered October 17th, 1975. Very good year. NBC that night had Sanford and Son at 8, Chico and the Man at 8:30. At 9 o'clock, this is a very good episode. The Rockford Files. It was the Great Blue Lake Land and Development Company, the one with Richard Scholl, involving cons and swindles and everything.
Wait,
and,
did I talk about that on a podcast?
Well, I was going to ask if you want to give a shout out to our friend of the show,
Steve,
yes. and he and Dave and their fine Rockford Files podcast.
That's right. The 200 days, or $200.
$200 a day plus expenses.
Yes. And I did a guest appearance on it. And, I believe that was the episode we talked about.
And that was it made its premiere on this night.
Hey.
And more linking of our podcast here. We're covering the Chico and the Man and then the Rockford Files. And now if we can get together with a policewoman podcast.
Hey.
Because they were at 10 o'clock on NBC.
Oh, wow.
So
what was it? Oh, Sanford and Son.
Sanford, Chico, Rockford, and Policewoman. That's a pretty good lineup.
Yeah.
I mean, those are 4 shows that are still, remembered today.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go to CBS, and I'm going to save the 8 o'clock for last, actually.
Okay.
8:30 was MASH, 9 o'clock Hawaii Five-0, 10 o'clock Barnaby Jones. Again, recognizable shows. And this is Friday night, remember? So TV's not a graveyard at this point at all.
Hawaii Five-0 in its 18th season.
Yes. Barnaby Jones, one of the only characters older than Ed Brown. 8 o'clock was Big Eddie. This is an interesting thing. I've only been able to find like the opening credits of this. Okay, so premise is like a man who's connected, as it were, to certain elements, to undesirable elements, decides to go legit, and I think he like runs a sport team or a sports arena or whatever. And that Sherry North is his daughter. His granddaughter is Quinn Cummings, who was a child actress in Goodbye Girl. And Big Eddie is Sheldon Leonard. Now, doesn't this sound like a show you'd want to watch?
Yes.
Okay, and now we'll put it in the playlist. Watch the opening credits, and it's kind of like a quirky kind of thing, but I want to see that show when I watch those opening credits. But unfortunately, I think it only lasted like a half season, like 13 episodes. So Sanford and Son destroyed it.
Yeah.
ABC had Mobile One at 8 o'clock. This is an interesting show. This is a Jack Webb show, and Mobile One is actually a news gathering, like a news van. And I think Jackie Cooper was in it. Again, didn't last very long. And I think it's kind of a rare show. 9 o'clock was a movie. I think it was a 1973 movie on like the ABC movies. So it was a play of a theatrical movie. It was called The Thief Who Came to Dinner with your guy, Ryan O'Neal. And isn't he what your guy?
I don't think so. I mean, I've enjoyed some of his collaborations with Peter Bogdanovich.
Yes. Well, through Peter Bogdanovich. Okay. Yes. And I think Jacqueline Bisset. But what's one thing that's interesting about this movie is it's about like I think he's a computer programmer or something who just decides to start robbing people and but sort of like a gentleman thief kind of thing, I believe. But the movie was actually produced by Norman Lear and Bud Yorkin's production company.
Okay.
So there was a lot of Bud Yorkin on this night. That's kind of a weird lineup for ABC, but man, you look at CBS and NBC, and my big takeaway is Friday night TV was pretty solid back then. Yeah, 1975.
And what was the day again?
October 17th, 1975.
Oh, an auspicious day.
It was.
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh yeah, it probably was. For somebody it was.
Somebody was.
So the one thing I'll say before we get into it is, so Chico and the Man was almost for its whole run was like a Friday 8:30 p.m. show. Unlike some of the other shows that we talk about, it was pretty solid there. Like it seemed like halfway through its second season, it moved to like Wednesday at 9, then it moved right back to Friday 8:30, and I'm not sure what was going on there. I get the feeling it looked like they're maybe trying to establish it on another night and see if they could use that to like create another show, and maybe they got instant results and said no, we better keep it with Sanford. So it didn't last long. So basically Friday 8:30 was where the show was.
And the episode opens, as many of the episodes I saw, with Ed walking down the stairs from his apartment to uproarious applause.
Yeah, enthusiastic reaction.
Into the garage. He's a little, groggy. He hasn't had his morning shot yet.
Right.
And he comes down and there's a bathtub sitting in the middle of the garage, which he's a little confused about, obviously. It wasn't there when he went to bed.
Right. I mean, he's used to the gas pump by now.
Yes.
But the bathtub, this is new.
He's even used to the Chicano Man.
Yeah.
who comes in also, of course, to great applause.
Yes, he comes in from like the back where the restroom area is.
That's right. Yeah, and he's planning on installing the tub in a closet behind the restroom so that he can take his bath downstairs and not go bug Ed in his apartment, which seems nice. And he got the tub from Louis, who took it out of a building that's being torn down. And he says, he's going to pay for all the plumbing, and he's going to do all the work.
Yeah.
All this. So.
And well, we're going to find out something else he did that I was very impressed by.
Yes.
He apparently arranged to get it up to code.
Yeah.
He actually applied for like permits and stuff.
Right. Yeah. What a great idea.
Yeah. We don't see that enough in sitcoms, the mechanics of how local government works and zoning and regulation.
Yes.
Here's a chance for us to explore that.
Mm-hmm. And in fact, right on cue, a man in a suit comes in. He's got glasses, a clipboard, and he's from the building inspector. He's building inspector Gomez, and he's looking for Rodriguez Chico, which Chico says he's only called that in school when he was in trouble. So he had called, as we said, to get permission to set up this tub. And Gomez starts looking around. He looks at the fuse box, which is a mess and not covered or anything. And Brown Ed had been in his office, and he comes out. What's going on here? He says, Brown, you're dangerously exposed. And he does a take.
Yes.
Chico has to explain it means the fuse box. So that's going to be a $150 fine. And Chico's like, well, I'll fix it today.
Yeah.
And then the license is not clean, so it's not readable. So that's another $150. So Ed throws water on it, and all this fire starts shooting out of the wires.
I got a kick out of that.
Yeah.
It was kind of it was a pretty goofy thing to do, but it looked pretty funny. Just the idea, like, I'll take care of that right now.
Yeah.
Throws a bucket of water.
Right. Doesn't get a rag or
no. And something else I want to mention too before I forget is I like how Gomez, who's played by Ralph Manza, a veteran character actor. I want to give him a shot because I think he's great in this. But I like how throughout this whole scene he calls him Rodriguez Chico.
Yes.
Like he doesn't let he just sticks with that because it's written down on his sheet, and that's who he is as far as he's concerned.
Yeah. He has no sense of humor because, of course, Chico's making all sorts of wisecracks. Mm-hmm. He's just the ultimate bureaucrat, the ultimate dedicated bureaucrat. He's doing his job, whatever the regulations are, he's got to follow that. And then Chico explains the living situation, that he lives in the van. That's why he needs a bathtub. And obviously, this is not garage is not zoned for residential.
No.
And that's going to be a $500 fine. And Chico tries some Spanish on Gomez, who says he doesn't speak Spanish during business hours.
Yeah.
I liked that.
Yes, I did too. I like kind of like the give and take. Like at least they have an opportunity to make this right if they do it quickly.
Yes. 24 hours to fix this.
Yeah.
And then Ed insults him.
Yeah.
And gets a small fine.
Yeah, there was a line. I forget exactly what it was, but when Gomez, an incredulous Gomez, asks, if that's his where he lives, and it's like, oh no, he's got a summer van in the country. I thought it was kind of funny that he's kind of joking about it too. This is one of those shows where like the character is always joking and stuff like that, and it doesn't really feel phony to me. It's just kind of natural. It's like Ed can't help himself, just being like a wiseacre.
So after Gomez leaves, Louis comes in and he's brought Chico a toy sailboat for his tub.
Yes, and Louis gets a big round of applause too.
Yes, of course.
Well, he should.
And they explain what's going on, and Louis suggests really the obvious thing: why don't Chico live with Ed? Mm-hmm. And they're both sort of like, maybe that's not a good idea, But finally, Ed agrees to it, and Chico's like, okay, I'll go. Let me pack my stuff. And he goes in the van, and he comes out with just a toothbrush.
Yeah. He's like, okay, I'm all packed, and he holds up the toothbrush. Now, I like this scene, and one of the other things that I was interested in this episode is I like the fact that it addresses this unusual living situation. Mm-hmm. And I like the scene because it shows like, okay, this is why Chico puts up with this, is because he doesn't really need a lot, and he's not like tied down by possession. So really, the van is just a place to sleep,
right? And
kind of like the garage, and enjoying the nightlife and whatever else he's doing. But it's kind of cool that they address it, because by this point, after watching like so much of the show, it is kind of weird. Like, why is Chico? And I think they do address this again later.
Yeah.
Like him deciding like he needs to move out and stuff like that. But it's kind of weird that he's living there in that van, I think.
Yeah, and like in the pilot episode, that's one of his ways of kind of working his way into Ed's life. Mm-hmm. He saw an opportunity. He kind of made it his own little home there, but that was before he had actually been hired or anything.
Right. I think if you look at the show as Chico's whole purpose here is purely or primarily to help Ed, like how you were talking about earlier, then
Yeah.
it makes more sense. He doesn't really care about his own living situation because his purpose is to guide Ed through life, through
That's
this
right.
stage of life.
Yeah, and if he is, if we go with the theory he actually is an angel, a
Yeah.
guardian angel, and he doesn't really need anything. He probably isn't even in the van at night.
Now, if he's an angel, does the Della Reese character
Hmm.
have any connection with Touched by an Angel?
Maybe that was who she was before she became an angel.
Right. No, I would love to explore that show, but it's past our time frame,
Yes.
so we'll have to let somebody up with a
Right.
90s
And
Pots podcast.
did Robert Guillaume teach Freddie Prinze how to be an angel?
Yeah, I'll bet those two would have clashed at first.
Yeah.
At first.
Well, he's definitely unorthodox. Whether he's a celestial being or just a guy from the neighborhood.
Yeah, I watched an episode where Ed was kind of like got a weird like part-time gig like singing standards at a piano bar kind of because it was like bringing people in.
Because Jack Albertson could sing.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
And what was odd about it was like Chico, like right away, he says like, "Oh, this is dangerous because Ed's living in the past, man. Just singing these old songs because they remind him of his late wife."
Right.
And I guess he was right, but it still seems like Chico was kind of overstepping his bounds. So basically, he gets Louis, and they kind of do like a scheme to like sort of ruin the job for Ed, so he can't do it anymore.
Wasn't he happy?
Well, he was happy, but it wasn't the right kind of happy.
Yeah.
He says something like "it won't last" or something like that. It was, I forget how Chico put it. He probably put it much better than I could, but it did seem a little intrusive because it's a half-hour sitcom.
Yeah.
But right away he goes to, okay, this is bad for Ed. This side thing, doing standards, and playing the piano.
He should be at home watching TV.
Yeah, yeah. It plays a little weird,
Yeah. And speaking of home watching TV, we get to go up to Ed's apartment, which I imagine didn't happen very often. It's the only time I saw it.
Yeah, I've seen it before, but yeah, it wasn't like a regular thing.
And much like Ed's garage, it's pretty cluttered.
Yeah, and they've got some of the stereotypical bachelor, tenants like a clothesline going across the room with clothes hanging from them.
Yeah.
Stuff on the floor.
Yeah, this all sounds very familiar. No, I don't have a clothesline.
He does have an interesting little kitchenette area in the back, which was kind of interesting. It seems like he's got some space to make something. I think a little dining table.
Yeah.
In the back there,
but it's a studio.
Yeah, it's probably, and it's fine for Ed.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can see how it'd be a little cramped when another grown man moves in there.
Yes. But he doesn't have a couch or anything. His TV's at the foot of his bed, and Chico's got a cot laid out. I guess it was a cot. So he comes out after taking a shower, and Ed gets in bed. He's wearing much like Grandpa Joe in Willy Wonka. He's wearing a nightshirt.
Yeah.
I think, doesn't he still have his hat on? He probably doesn't, but I want to believe he does.
But yeah.
But he kind of gets in bed and turns the TV on to, of course, classic generic Western.
Yeah. Gunfire and general chaotic noises, people yelling.
Yeah.
Thundering horse,
Right.
Horse beats.
And Chico sits down and on his cot and starts playing his guitar. Which honestly is a little rude.
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
He should understand. But I guess the TV's gone. He's not, it's not like Ed is sleeping, which, that the guitar annoys Ed. So he stops playing and he looks at the TV, or he looks up the TV guide and sees that the movie playing is Stampede. And he immediately spoils that movie. And then so Ed changes the channel and it's some kind of mystery, and Chico spoils that.
Yes.
He changes it to the Tonight Show, and Chico gets up and says, "Oh, yeah, the band Toronto Trash is going to be on. They're the hottest band around." And he sings a little bit of their song and does a little dance. And it seems like their song is from 1957.
Yeah, it's a retro. Well, the 50s craze was...
Yes, that's right.
Was maybe in its early stages. But it gives Freddie Prinze the opportunity to do like a little Elvis routine.
Yeah.
Which is amusing.
And so Ed turns off the TV, and then Chico goes over and opens the window.
Yeah. Oh, okay. May I interject
Yes.
something, because this addresses like a lot of what you've been saying, but it's kind of like, to me it speaks to like the chemistry between them that they make this work, and it's like both characters know what they're doing as well as the actors. But so the man says like something like, "Don't you know I'm ready to go to sleep," and he goes, "No, but hum a few bars and I'll fake it, haha," and Ed does a take. Like, so it's kind of like a take. It's like the actor doing a take, probably like it was his natural reaction, but it's almost like the character is like acknowledging that it's a joke, and I think in a level he enjoys it, and I think the two of them like kind of like going back and forth with each other, and I actually thought it was pretty funny. It's like that's one of the oldest jokes ever, but they find a way to kind of make it work with with the sort of guileless delivery of Freddie Prinze and the take by Jack Albertson adding to it. So I just wanted to get that in there, and again, it's just summing up like a lot of what I like about this episode.
Okay, so Chico opens the window, which of course Ed doesn't want, and he says, "If God had wanted us to breathe, he wouldn't have made L.A." I admit, that's a good line.
Yeah.
And then he turns off the light and lies down, and Chico turns off the bathroom light. And Ed's he wants that on, and Chico's like, "What, are you afraid of the dark?" And he's like, "No, I want it on so I can see the dark."
Yeah. He loves it.
Yeah.
That's why he has the lights on, so he can enjoy it, see it, enjoy it. And I laughed at that too.
Yeah. And then he gets up to turn that light back on, and he steps on Chico's guitar.
Yeah.
And destroys it.
Crushes it.
That's not getting fixed.
Yeah. He smashes it even more than when Honky Tonk Man smashed a guitar over Jake Roberts' head on the snake pit on WWF television. Ooh. That guitar is gone.
Yeah.
And that's, I guess, kind of the last straw for Chico.
Yep, he's going to go for a walk. But then Ed leaves instead.
Yeah, what I think is interesting about this, and why I kind of like this, it's sort of like a realistic sort of argument. It's like, they're a little frustrated, but like Ed says, like, "Oh, you can't go out for a walk. It's dangerous out there." They kind of make jokes about mugging and stuff, but Ed's genuinely concerned for him.
Yeah.
And even though they're having their issues, it doesn't go straight to putting a line down one side of the apartment with tape or whatever, and which I kind of would have enjoyed that,
of course.
But I like the fact that they're sort of like they're being a little bit more mature about it than just going right to like hating each other because like the writers thought it'd be funny to have them just like go back and forth. It's like they're having their differences, but in the meantime, they find a way to work out the situation. It's not necessarily what you'd expect. I thought Ed saying, "You stay here, I'll move out."
Where does he go?
I don't know where
the van.
Yeah, maybe he goes in the van or something, but it's kind of unexpected, and I kind of like that. I thought that was a nice touch that Ed's like, "Yeah, you know what? You stay here, I'll go." It wasn't what I expected at all, and I kind of appreciated that.
All right,
I'm going to make my case for this episode.
Yes, you're doing a good job.
Okay.
Yeah, so I believe that's the act break, the commercial break. And then we're in this scene in this diner, and Chico's there, and he's all pretty tired. And so the waitress, Anita, that's important to know her name.
Yes.
Is played by Penny Marshall in an early role.
Yeah.
But really only, a year or two away from Laverne Shirley, right?
And she had been on Odd Couple as a regular before. So she was well known, I would say, she was known. But, she's there already, so she doesn't get the privilege of entering the set and getting a rapturous ovation.
No, but she's really good in the scene.
Yeah, she is.
And they give her a lot of funny stuff to see.
And I really like this character.
Yeah.
And I would have loved to have had this character be a regular on the show. I mean, I'd go so far as to say this is probably one of the best things I've ever seen Penny Marshall do. Because I was not a big fan of the Laverne character, even on The Odd Couple. This isn't my favorite. Yeah, I liked her on The Odd Couple, but this is something different, and just it's kind of like a lower key energy that contrasts very well with what everybody else is doing in the scene, or it complements it, I should say.
And she's almost like just she's monologuing to herself. Really, in response to everything that's going on. A lot of people say, I need a coffee, and she says running jokes about that sounding like Anita. I need to change my name, this and that. And that's kind of the end of the scene. So I'll save that particular joke. But everybody's is grumpy too.
Yeah.
Chico's grumpy because he didn't sleep well. Ed didn't sleep well. So then I admit I got a little confused because I thought, maybe some time has passed, and they tried, but it's the next morning, obviously, because they had 24 hours. And then there's this whole thing, which is enjoyable, but also kind of odd because it's almost nothing to do with the rest of other than Chico's looking for some place to live.
Right.
But then that just becomes a thing where they're passing this newspaper around the underground swinger and reading wacky ads for for roommates needed.
Yeah.
And it's this whole, hand me that. Oh,
Yeah.
give me that back. And
Yeah,
then they
yeah.
read a joke, and
Yeah.
almost like the jokes are written in the
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, for some reason, I really like this too because again, it's like they're kind of like on the same team, but they're each bringing their own sensibilities. The characters each bringing their own sensibilities to these jokes, but they're both sort of acknowledging the absurdity of everything.
Yeah.
And again, it's not necessarily conflict, but it's like it's gone from like the conflict of those two against each other to the conflict of these two trying to find Chico like a reasonable living situation.
Right. And they're having fun together.
Yeah,
Like
that's
the
right.
characters are having
And it's sort of like they're not openly like laughing, but you can tell that you just get the sense that the characters are amused by these ads too.
Yeah.
You know, and there's like little things they're adding to it. And yeah, like you said, like the physical passing the paper back and forth, there's something about that too that's good. But it is weird. It is sort of disconnected from the rest of the episode. It's almost like this whole thing is almost like it was like a separate sketch.
Yes.
You know, from a different show that they put into the middle of this sitcom.
Right. And you can completely imagine the writers sitting around and just throwing out 100 ideas for these ads.
Yes.
And then whittling it down to the 5 or 6 that they do.
Yes. Now, you know what? Since you met them, I looked up the actors for this, or I'm sorry, the writers for this episode. I think James Comic might have had a co-writing credit, but I don't know if it was a little ambiguous because I can't remember in the credits if he was, but there's two, like a man and a woman team.
Yes.
And I looked up their credits. This was the only Chico and the Man episode they did.
Huh.
And other episodes, they were, and I think maybe they were a team. I don't know if they were a couple or whatever, but it looks like they were a team.
I think they were. I think the name, I mean, maybe they're brother and sister.
Yeah, it could be. But they did like a bunch of Love Boat episodes and, you know, like Facts of Life and some other ones. And it's interesting. So it's just interesting. Like, I wonder what they brought to this episode just because this particular scene is so unique to the show.
Yeah.
That I wonder what the reaction to it was. And I think I'll put the writers' names in the show notes. Ann Gibbs, I think, was the female, and I can't remember the guy's name, but
yeah, I wonder if they were freelancers or
yeah, it could be.
But yeah, it could be like just what did they actually write?
Yeah, I didn't realize that until afterwards. I was looking up because I thought the episode was a little bit unusual. But like I said, they've addressed some things like Chico's living situation. And it's interesting that these two people that didn't write on the show at all before or after created this episode and brought in this scene with this waitress in this diner.
Right.
Another mystery.
Yeah. And I didn't think Chico and the Man would have this many mysteries.
No, but they're piling up.
And Louis comes in too. Chico found this house, this like group house on some address, and Louis like, "Oh, that's a bad place. I went to pick up the garbage, and the garbage picked me up."
Yeah.
And Ed's trying to discourage him, and finally he's like, "No, I'm gonna go move in this place." And
it's like 1714 flower.
Yeah, and Anita's like, "Oh, just my luck. I just moved out of 1714 flower." And she also, she's saying, I think when Louis orders his coffee, he needs a coffee. And she lists all these coffee type things. And then, she says her name is Anita Cappuccino.
Yeah.
Then the next scene is the garage.
Oh, can I jump in here too?
Please.
Because I love, like, after Chico leaves and Louis leaves, Ed like gets up from the counter and kind of makes this speech, this just getting these things off his chest and makes this like big kind of like speech, and like everybody in the diner like applauds at the end of it,
and he does a little bow.
Yeah, he acknowledges it and just walks out. It was just like, again, it was this kind of funny thing of like, if this character did this, how would people react? And
yeah.
I love that they put that in, and then
Anita says nobody paid.
Yeah, and she just says it kind of a matter of fact way, and I just laughed at that too.
Pay.
I love that little bit of business, Yeah, that whole scene I thought was tremendous.
And so the garage, Gomez comes back, and Ed gives him a piece of his mind. But he's looking around. He sees the fuse box is fixed. That fine goes away. The license is legible. That goes away.
Yep.
But then he opens the van. The bathtub is still out. Mm-hmm. He doesn't like that. But he opens the van, and Chico's napping in there, and he's ready to still give them the fine for that, which I thought was a little unfair. I mean, I can understand him being suspicious, but he's just taking a nap. There's no law against that, is there?
Well, that's they protest, right? Napping is different than sleeping.
Yes.
Now, you and I see a difference,
right?
But it's not in like the code, I guess.
You could take a nap in your Ed could take a nap in his chair in his office.
That's right. Yeah.
I'm sure he has after a few belts.
Yeah. It does seem a little bit like bureaucratic overreach here.
Yes. So Gomez starts reciting the regulations.
Yeah.
And he gets basically like if a commercial property is owned a particular way, it cannot be a personal residence, and unless you have security personnel overnight.
Yeah, and he says like at one point like Ed interrupts him and he says, I cannot do it again unless I start from the beginning. Right. Which I thought was a nice little touch too, him reciting all that stuff. But yeah, he gives this night watchman business.
Yes, and then Ed and Chico do a big, like a little to-do back and forth to get to the point of Ed is hiring him to be his night watchman.
No.
And Ed like does it, I don't know, he goes into his office and pretends to be held up.
Yeah, that was a little much.
Yeah. Has a drink while he's in there.
Yeah.
Which is another thing that always gets applause the first time he does his little.
Yeah, he
has
opens
his
the
bottle,
register.
His bottle like hidden in a book.
Yeah.
He slides the big book out. The bottle falls out. He catches it. And he opens the register, pours a drink into a shot glass that's inside the register.
Woo! Yeah, audience loves that. Day drinking on the job around machinery and.
He's got a drinking problem.
Yeah.
But then comes out and he goes, oh, see, when has anybody ever robbed this place? Never, or something like that, because Chico's there. And it doesn't Gomez say, he says something like, you think you put one over on me?
Yeah.
Well, you did.
Yeah. Very well delivered, yes.
Yes. And he lets them do this, and then he says something in Spanish on the way out.
Yeah, Ed asks what he said.
And Chico's like, you wouldn't be able to do it.
Yeah. And another thing I kind of liked is like Chico like just tosses something around. Hey, just so it's not a total waste of your time, why don't you give us a $5 fine for littering?
Yes.
He just sort of does it like a little bit of swagger, and it's like, but amiable swagger.
Then Chico's like, no, I still don't want to live in the van. He doesn't seem totally committed to that idea. But Ed, in a brief moment of sentimentality, says, oh, well, I'll miss you.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of realistic, again, because I was actually surprised that it was sort of unspoken, and then they kind of went right to speaking it, because Chico's offering basically to move out.
Yeah.
Saying, I can get out of your way and everything, and the man is like, well, if you want to go ahead. I'm not gonna beg you to stay or whatever.
Right.
But know one thing, and he says, yeah, I'll miss you. Right. It's a nice moment.
And Chico's, oh, really?
Yeah.
And Ed is holding a wrench, and he holds it up. Like, I'll miss you with this if you don't get back to work.
Yeah. And then one last little bit of business in the scene.
Yeah.
He sort of casually tosses the wrench and apparently drops it on his foot.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And then starts jumping up and down and wincing.
Of course.
Now, that was not necessary, but I enjoyed it.
Yes.
I thought it was very funny.
Those vaudeville roots.
Yeah. I'd like to think that that's something Jack Albertson suggested, during the filming.
So when I was in vaudeville with Phil Silvers.
Yeah.
He used to do a wrench dropping bit.
Yeah, wrench dropping bit.
Do you want a rubber wrench? No, you got to use a real one.
Yeah.
Got to get that sound, that clang when it hits the floor.
And of course, he had his routine down, so he could drop it, and you'd swear, even if you were in the front row, that it really hit his foot. And of course, it wouldn't.
Right. And then there's a tag scene. Where Chico comes out of his van. He's wearing a bathrobe. He's got a very large rubber duck.
Yeah.
And he's all happy. He's walking over to where the tub is. There are a bunch of tires in front of it, apparently on pallet or something.
Gag alert.
Gag.
Those tires aren't usually there in the middle of the garage. What are those doing there?
Right. He casually pushes them out of the way.
Yes.
And Ed is in the bathtub taking a bubble bath.
Yeah.
And Tubi was really fast on.
Oh.
It sounded like there was a little audio over the credits of him, Ed saying, "Scrub my back."
Yes, which is that's not something I've ever heard before in another episode. Usually, it's containerized, if you will.
Right. Yes.
Where you won't hear dialogue over those. But yes, you do hear him say that. Yeah.
Yeah. So let me ask you this.
Sure.
Does Chico move out?
You know what? I don't think he does. Yeah. But I know from looking at plot descriptions, I think there's at least one other episode, maybe in the third season, where he's planning on moving out. Mm. But I don't think he does.
Yeah.
Or if he does, I haven't seen the play. But most of what I've seen is in the first half of the show, like all the first season, and some of the second season, and because I can't help myself, I've watched some of the Raul episodes, and even towards the end of the fourth season where they bring in Monica, I think a teenage girl character.
Because one kid wasn't enough.
Right.
thought it was Julie.
Well, I said it. I think I said it was Julie, but I think the character's name was Julia.
Oh, okay.
I think I got it mixed up.
Okay.
I think Monica's the character.
Okay.
Or maybe I'm getting it mixed up now.
Huh. Well, it's one of those.
Yeah, the fourth season is not particularly memorable. I
Yeah.
wouldn't recommend it. Although you do get Charo, and they're trying.
Not too long ago, I was talking to my brother about something, and maybe he'd heard a Christmas song on the radio or clip or something, but it somehow involved some Dean Martin Christmas special.
Okay.
So we looked it up, and or maybe there was a trivia question. Anyway, there was an actor on it. It turned out it was the kid from the fourth season of Chico.
Gabriel
Yeah.
Melgar, I think.
And I'm like, I don't know who that is.
Wow, yeah.
So we had looked it up and like, it looks like he was some kid on Chico the Man. Like I didn't know he was
Yeah.
exactly his purpose on the show.
Yeah. I think he retired from acting.
Yeah, he didn't
pretty
have a
early.
lot of credits.
He was on some other things like in that era, like on Chips and things like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, he tried, but I mean, the problem is it's an impossible situation.
Right.
In retrospect,
You're
would say,
replacing a star.
yeah, why would they go on? And why would they even want to?
Right.
Because it is going to be weird. But I guess I can't. Who's to say? There were a lot of people that had jobs on the show.
Yeah.
And you still had Jack Albertson. Della Reese had been established as a character at that point. You still had Scatman Crothers. So hey,
Right.
but yeah, it just didn't work.
Found a reason to bring Charo in.
Yeah.
Well, I know Jose Feliciano played his uncle, right? Chico's uncle, I think, or cousin.
Yeah, I didn't see that episode, but I know
Yeah, I was going to watch it.
he made an appearance.
Cesar Romero played his dad.
Hmm.
Explains his mustache prowess.
Yes.
A lot of good mustaches.
Yeah.
If nothing else, I think, this show's a lock for 2 facial hair baddie nominations.
Yes, I think you were right.
Well, I watched an episode of George Takei,
Mhm.
which is quite entertaining,
Okay.
where he thinks he's Ed's illegitimate son
Hmm.
from post-World War II Japan.
Oh,
I
not
mean, they reference it as being the war, but
Mhm.
it's not from the occupation.
okay.
And of course, there's an episode where Sammy Davis Jr. visits the garage.
Yes, I did watch that, and I enjoyed that.
I meant to watch it, and I just didn't get
What a
to it.
trooper Sammy Davis Jr. is.
I was thinking though when I read that, I'm like, somebody who has the time could probably do a podcast just on Sammy Davis Jr. appearances on TV.
For sure.
Just guest appearances on sitcoms would probably.
And going with the angelic theme, I mean, Sammy
Yeah.
Davis Jr. maybe representing the devil
Mm,
from, of course, Poor Devil.
yes.
Maybe that's connected too.
Oh, I hope he and Freddie didn't get up to any
No,
trouble afterwards.
no, I hope not. Now, of course, Sammy Davis Jr. did record a version of the theme song. And it's very good.
I bet it is. I can hear it.
Yeah.
Man,
Yeah, it's really cool. But that's good. And yeah, the what I was talking to you about the season 2 premiere.
Uh-huh.
Rich Little is on the show doing impersonations and everything.
Is he Rich Lowe?
Yes, I think he is.
Yeah.
There's involving something with like artwork and charity, whatever. But the main thing is it's like Rich Little comes in, does a bunch of impersonations, and is sort of impersonating both of them.
Yeah.
And there's a scene where Chico's training Rich Little how to say "looking good."
Right.
And I think I could be wrong on this, but I think that's where the catchphrase was spawned because they do it like 3 times, and I really got the sense that they were telling the audience, okay, this is going to be our catchphrase from now on.
Right.
So pay attention.
And we don't think that's from his stand-up.
No,
I know
I-
he had a stand-up album called that, but
I believe that I think it was on the show, and then
Yeah.
he used it in the act afterwards.
I guess that's the same way Dynamite worked, right?
I think so. Looking good. And
And he didn't do it in this episode, but the
No.
ones I saw where he did it twice, both times.
yeah.
Wow.
Why not? Yeah. So yeah, I watched a little bit of Freddie Prinze's stand up, and actually there's some things like they reference in the documentary. There's like an on location special he did for HBO in like 1975 or
Whoa,
something.
yeah.
That actually it's available as of this podcast.
On Max?
No,
No.
on YouTube. And of course they wouldn't put it on Max. But it's sort of like a precursor to like the Young Comedian specials
Uh-huh.
because he's like emceeing
Yeah.
and introducing, and I forget, like there were some known comedians that it looked like from the picture. I think Tim Thomerson was somebody on there, and some other people who would go into recognition. But to me, it's not like, I wouldn't say it's like uproariously funny to me.
Yeah.
But he's got such a command up on stage. He's owns his material, and like you said, like the charisma is there, like in whatever he does.
Yeah. And I saw that I've never seen Fame, the movie, but he went to the school that's based on, and that his death is a plot point.
In the movie?
Yeah, in the
Oh,
movie.
I didn't know that. Wow.
Or at least referenced.
Wow, that's interesting.
I don't know if kids are, is it a warning to them or what?
Yeah, and there's some stand-up like him on the Midnight Special,
Mm-hmm.
him on the Tonight Show. They said in the documentary that they made it sound like he was the first comedian ever to be called over to the couch after his set, which I'm not sure if that's true.
Yeah,
But it may very well be the first
Wikipedia
time.
phrased it as the first young comedian to be called over after his first set.
Okay, now that yes, after his debut,
Yeah.
which is that's pretty
It is.
impressive, and they highlight this in the documentary. They really highlight it by doing, I think, a few, like, they slow down the footage and show him looking around, but you can tell he's like soaking in the moment, and he recognizes what a big deal it is. It's just a shame that they say too much too soon. But yeah, to me, I think he's great on the show. I think he's funny. His lack of acting, his lack of professional on-camera acting experience doesn't really show to me.
Right.
They say another thing they say in the documentary is, I guess, when they were first making, like, the first episode, like Jack Albertson, I think Jimmy Comack, as I call him.
Yeah.
I think they were a little bit worried because he just wasn't doing it. And they were like, oh, is he might not be able to cut it. But then when they actually went in rehearsals, it was like that. But then when they started recording before an audience, it came alive, and they knew, like, right away, like, okay, we've got something here.
Yeah.
Which, that sounds like a typical showbiz story, but I can totally believe that he would come alive in front of an audience, and they know right away, okay, we got something here, because it's certainly apparent on camera.
Yeah. And he might have not had professional acting experience, but I assume if you're going to the school for performing arts, you probably had some training.
Right.
And he also had dance training, and
yeah.
Which I read that and I'm like, oh yeah, I can see that. There's something. I mean, he stands up very straight. There's something graceful about him.
He does use,
Jack Albertson has his tap dancing kind of thing.
I think that's one thing that helps a relatively stage-bound sitcom like this, is the physicality of the actors. And even beyond just like a different kind of physicality, like the wrench bit notwithstanding.
Yeah.
You've got, like, some like Jack Tripper or John Ritter's performances are one thing, but this is more like with gestures and things, and like posture and things like that.
Yeah.
And even like the way they interact with each other in their space. I mean, there's a lot going on there that really livens the show up, I think.
Yes. I'm not going to say you sold me on it. No, you've done a good job. And I think this episode, talking through it, has made it more entertaining. And
yeah.
I mean, because I was watching it, taking notes. And it's not, sometimes I'll try to watch the episode and then watch it again with the taking notes. And I just didn't have time for that. But I think the first couple episodes, partly because it was so much about them butting heads. Mm-hmm. And the second episode is essentially recapitulating the first episode.
yeah.
Like, I have second thoughts about all this.
Right.
Let's do it again.
Yeah.
Like, oh, boy. But then some of these other episodes I saw, I did enjoy more. Again, especially when they get to be funny together.
Yeah, that's what I like. I don't know creatively how long the show could have sustained itself, but I think maybe the second season is kind of like where the show really is better for me, because I like the dynamic of Chico and Ed against the world rather than Chico versus Ed. And I like that. And of course, with the assistance from Louis.
Of course. And assuming Freddie Prinze had lived and his star had kept rising, I imagine he would have moved on to other things too.
Yeah.
He would have wanted. I guess he had signed a big deal with NBC.
He did a movie.
Yeah.
That apparently was a flop. I think it was a TV movie, like the $1 Million Ripoff.
Okay.
And I think maybe they'd said, like, the reviews were like some of the first bad reviews that he had gotten. Mm-hmm. It was kind of a dramatic role.
Yeah.
And, that might have scared him off for a while, but eventually I think it would have been inevitable they would have gotten into movies. Now, an interesting contrast that I didn't see anybody else make, but what was going through my mind when thinking about this was Eddie Murphy, who this meteoric rise, made a successful transition into movies, kind of kept a toe in Saturday Night Live at the same time, became a superstar. And, he's had his ups and downs, but he's still with us.
Yeah.
Just had this tremendous career. And it's interesting to think about, could Freddie Prinze have had that kind of success, and to speculate on just, well, Eddie Murphy was able to get through it where others couldn't.
And there's a TV movie biopic of Freddie Prinze.
Yeah, I'm curious to see that.
I am curious.
And I've seen, like, I saw like a clip of it.
I'm curious because Mike Binder plays somebody in it.
What?
Yeah.
He does?
He plays a Persky? No.
Oh, his friend Alan starts with B, or Baskey, or something like that. Yeah. He was a comedian friend who was one of the main sources for the documentary that I watched.
Right.
One of his best friends, and actually there's footage, we'll put it in the playlist, of the two of them on the Mike Douglas show.
Okay.
Which they reference in there, but according to this guy Alan, Freddie Prinze actually, like, sort of went up and like shoved cocaine up his nose or something like that. In between, like, segments on the Mike Douglas show or something like that.
Mike Douglas?
No, up Alan's.
Alan's. Okay.
Yes, he being Alan. Careful with my pronouns.
Yes. Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting. They were like best friends in the comedy scene and roommates, I guess, for a while. So that's Mike Binder. Okay, I'll have to look out for that one. I haven't come across that, but that was one thing you had back in the, I don't know when that movie was made, but you had an era there for about, late 70s, especially to maybe early 80s, where you had all these like network TV movies about real people.
Yeah.
And these biopics. That was a big thing. So it's kind of fascinating to look back now. So many people that there were biopics about that you would never know, and like, oh yeah, they made a TV movie about that. That's interesting.
Now it'd just be, well, like that documentary.
Yeah.
Or a quickie Discovery Channel or something.
Now, was there ever a TV movie about Jack Albertson?
No, I don't think so.
Maybe there should have been.
And I was interested to learn that his sister was an actress.
I didn't know that.
She played Darren's mother on Bewitched.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, I'll be.
And I went down a bit of a Wikipedia rabbit hole here. She was Cloris Leachman's mother-in-law.
Okay.
And the son that Cloris Leachman was married to, they got divorced because he had an affair with Joan Collins.
Wow.
He was also a director and Marlon Brando's best friend.
Oh.
And directed him in something.
Huh, that's something.
And it was somebody else I had never heard of.
Okay, I didn't.
Something in England.
What a tangled web here.
Yeah.
With intriguing connections.
And yeah, Jack Albertson worked with Phil Silvers in vaudeville.
Yeah, he had a
and was a
great career.
I don't know what you call it. An EOT.
Emmy, Oscar, Tony.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So maybe he'll be a BOT.
Could be. He missed his chance to do a spoken word. Chico and the Man,
Right. The
recite poetry of East LA.
The story record.
Yeah.
That's Chico and the. Was there Chico and the Man merch?
Was
there like Amigo Chico doll?
Oh boy, if only there were. Or what I'd like to see, a color form set with the garage, and then you could put like little magnets of them, at various spots in that spacious garage. Well, if there was merch, there wasn't enough of it.
Yeah.
I don't have any of it. Yeah, so one thing I'm curious about, I don't have a definitive answer. It does seem like the ratings slipped even before, Freddie Prinze was gone. But
yeah.
I don't have any, it wasn't like anybody deliberately put anything up against it. So I don't know. Maybe the show, and I don't know if the ratings dropped so much in the third season because maybe like the handful of episodes without Freddie Prinze cratered and that brought down the whole average. I just don't know. Maybe I can find out more about that. But yeah, it's like, Lori and I were kind of watching one, and she was surprised that it was like a top 5 show its first year. And it's like, yeah, I was too.
Yeah.
I mean, part of it following Sanford and Son, of course, but still, there are many shows that followed popular shows that didn't do that well. So.
All right. Well, any other thoughts?
No, I think I've said it all. I do think that's my favorite episode so far, the one we just talked about. But yeah, I'm enjoying the show, and yeah, it's free on Tubi, and enjoy it while you can.
Yeah.
It's probably not going to be on DVD or anything, but get it on free streaming.
I'll watch some more episodes.
Okay, well, that's very gracious of
you.
Chico would have wanted it that way. If Ed Brown can, learn to live with Chico, I think you can can watch a few more episodes of this sitcom.
I think Chico could have convinced me.
Yeah, I bet he would have.
Yeah. I do. I want to watch the Sammy episode. I want to watch that Rich Little episode.
Yeah.
And the Jose Feliciano episode.
And you got to see.
Doesn't he have some an aunt? So I don't know who played, like Chico's aunt, who kind of has a flirtation with Ed or something.
Yes. Oh, and it was I can't remember who plays that. I didn't see that episode, but I did read about it. You've got to see a Charo episode or two as well. Hey, come on, get 2 birds with one stone. Yeah. You get to see the Raul character, and you get to see Charo.
Jack Albertson probably. What are you doing to me, man? Come on, Jimmy.
Yeah, well.
You got me acting with kids. You got me acting with this crazy lady.
Yeah.
I don't know what she's saying. I'm guessing Ed probably says that too.
Yeah, I think they did do many jokes to that effect. But
right. Okay. Well, yeah, thanks for listening, and we'll be back with more next week.
This episode brought to you by Ed Brown's Garage, service with a mustache. This episode also brought to you by Ant. This episode also brought to you by Bubble Baths. Looking good. Join us next time for another exciting episode of Battle of the Network shows. Learn more, leave feedback, and suggest future episodes at battleofthenetworkshows.com. Follow us on Twitter at BatNetShows, and like our Facebook page, facebook.com/Battle of the Network Shows.